before you close your eyes tonight, consider the most solid thing you know. The ground beneath your feet, the self within your skin, the cause that inevitably leads to its effect. You trust these things. You build your life upon them. But what if it's all a beautiful, necessary fiction? What if the very bedrock of your reality is as insubstantial as a dream? In the quiet of the 18th century, a man named David Hume lit a candle in this darkness. And what it revealed shattered certainty forever. This is not a story for the world. It's a quiet thought, passed to you alone, in the dark. Let it loosen your grip, and let go. First exploration. What if you are not the captain of your own mind? There is a room. It is a scholar's room in Edinburgh, and the hour is late. The fire has burned down to embers, and the only light comes from a single candle, its flame dancing in the draught from the window. And at the desk, a man is writing. His name is David Hume, and he is engaged in the most terrifying act of intellectual bravery imaginable. He is not dissecting a frog or charting a star. He is turning his gaze inward, and with a surgeon's calm, precise hand, he is beginning to dissect the human self. We carry this idea with us, don't we? This notion of a captain at the helm of our consciousness. A stable, enduring I that sits behind our eyes, making decisions, feeling feelings, steering the ship of our life through the waters of experience. We wake up as the same person who went to sleep. We feel responsible for our choices. This self feels like the most real, the most undeniable thing we possess. It is the anchor point for all our hopes, our regrets, our love, our legacy. It is everything. But Hume, in that quiet room, asks a simple, devastating question. He asks us to look, not to think, not to assume, but to look. Look within. What do you actually find when you set aside the poetry and the presumption and truly inspect the contents of your own mind? What is there? Do you find a single, solid, shining captain? Or do you find a procession, a cascade, a rapid, endless flow of particular perceptions? The cold of the pillow against your cheek, the memory of a voice from years ago, the faint taste of toothpaste, a worry about tomorrow, a line from a forgotten song, a flash of color behind your eyelids. You find heat, cold, love, fear, hardness, greenness, bitterness. All these individual discrete impressions and ideas flickering in and out of existence. The self, Hume suggests, is not the captain of this ship. It is the ship itself, and not a solid oak-built vessel, but a ship made entirely of the planks of these perceptions, nailed together by a principle he calls custom or habit. The mind, in its relentless pattern-making, takes this chaotic bundle of sensations and stitches them together, like a master tailor sewing a coat from 1,000 scattered scraps of cloth. It creates the illusion of continuity. It tells itself a story of a hero named I, who was here yesterday and will be here tomorrow. But the hero is just the narrative voice. The I is the story, not the storyteller. There is no central permanent substance, only the succession of states. Think of a river. You can step into the same river twice, they say. But is it the same? The water is never the same water. The current is never the same current. The banks erode, grain by grain. The only thing that makes it a river is the name we give it, the pattern we impose upon its endless change. Your mind is that river. You are a river believing itself to be a stone. And this can feel unsettling. It can feel like coming undone. To think that the you've been talking to all your life, the one you praise and blame and nurture, might be a phantom. a convenient fiction constructed by the brain to make sense of the glorious, bewildering chaos of existence. But then, feel the weight lift, that critic in your head, the one that narrates your every failure, that holds on to every slight. What if it too is just another thought, another temporary passenger on this river, not a king, but a fellow traveler? The guilt that you clutch so tightly, the anxiety about a future that does not yet exist, they are not eternal parts of your soul. They are passing weather in the sky of your mind. They come. And if you watch them with the quiet detachment of Hume at his desk, you see, they go. They are replaced by other weather. The self is not a fortress to be defended, but a process to be experienced. And in that realization, there is a profound, a breathtaking release. The captain can lay down his burden. The ship knows how to sail itself. You can rest now, not as a solid thing, but as a beautiful temporary collection of starlight and shadow, flowing in the vast, dark current of the world. Let the thoughts come, and let them go. You are the space they move through. You are the silence between the notes. And in that silence, there is peace. So the self begins to soften at the edges, like a page in a forgotten book, yielding to the damp and the dark. And as that central certainty dissolves, it leaves a quiet space, a space where we can ask a second, even more fundamental question. A question not about who we are, but about how the world itself holds together. Second exploration. Is the universe just a story we can't stop telling ourselves? Now, with the anchor of the self pulled up, we find ourselves adrift in a world of events, and we are storytellers by nature. We see a cue ball strike another, and the second ball moves. We say, the first ball caused the second to move. We see the sun rise day after day, and we feel a deep, ingrained certainty that it will rise tomorrow. This is the glue of our reality. Causality, the law of cause and effect. It is the principle that allows us to build, to plan, to fear, to hope. It is the engine of science and the foundation of common sense. Without it, the world would be a terrifying, unpredictable carnival. David Hume, in his quiet study, looks at this glue, and he finds it curiously sticky. He asks us, with the innocence of a child and the rigor of a logician, how do you know? Not how do you feel, or assume, or expect. How do you know that the sun will rise tomorrow? You will say, because it always has. But this, he points out, is a circular argument. You are using past experience to prove that future experience will conform to the past. You are assuming the very uniformity of nature that you are trying to prove. It is an act of faith, not of logic. Look at the billiard balls again. What do you actually see? You see one event, the first ball moving. You see a second event, the second ball moving. You see contiguity. They are close in space. You see priority in time. The first moves before the second. And you see constant conjunction. Every time you see the first, you see the second. But do you ever see the mystical, invisible force called causation? Do you see the necessity that compels the second ball to move? No. You see two events, and your mind, that relentless pattern maker, that master tailor, infers a connection. It tells itself a story, a leads to be. It's a habit of thought, born of repetition, a custom of the mind. We are all like animals in a laboratory, pressing a lever and receiving a food pellet. After a while, we believe our press causes the pellet. We feel the connection in our bones. but we never see the hidden wiring, the scientist on the other side of the glass. The universe, Hume suggests, is that other side of the glass. We see the sequence of events, but we are blind to the ultimate wires and gears. We live our entire lives inside a story we are telling ourselves, a story about necessity and connection. The world is not inherently causal. It is our minds that cannot help but see causality everywhere. This is the great liberation of skepticism. It is not a cold, nihilistic destruction. It is the gentle removal of a burden you never knew you were carrying. The burden of needing to know how it all works. The anxiety of trying to predict and control every outcome. What if you could rest in the simple, humble observation of what is? The sun rose today. That was beautiful. To expect it tomorrow is a pleasant story, a useful fiction that allows you to plan your day. But to demand it, to stake your inner peace on it, is to build your house on a story, not on stone. The universe does not owe us consistency. The gift is the present moment, the actual impression, the warmth of the sun on your skin right now, not the promise of its return. When you release the desperate grip on knowing what will happen next, you are left with the profound, the quiet, the utterly real experience of what is happening now. The weight of the blanket, the sound of your own breath, the dark kindness of the night. The story of cause and effect can be put down, like a heavy book, and in that putting down the mind, at last, finds a deeper, more immediate truth. The truth of simple, unadorned existence. And so, we loosen our grip on the story of the world, and in doing so, we find a strange, new kind of freedom. A freedom from the tyranny of tomorrow. But this journey inward has one final, quiet chamber to enter. A place where we must ask what guides us, if not the solid captain of the self, and if not the reliable laws of a causal world. What is left to steer by in the dark? Third exploration. What guides us? When reason sleeps. We have gently dissolved the permanent self. We have untethered the world from absolute causality. So what remains? Are we just ghosts in a machine, tumbling through a chaotic universe without purpose or principle? This is where Hume offers his most surprising, and perhaps his most comforting, revelation. He turns the entire rationalist project on its head with a single, luminous phrase. Reason is, and ought only to be, the slave of the passions. For centuries, philosophy had placed reason on a throne. It was the charioteer, meant to rein in the wild horses of emotion and desire. Our goal was to live a life according to reason. But Hume, the careful observer of human nature, saw that this was not how people actually worked. Watch yourself. You do not decide to desire a glass of water through a process of logic. The thirst comes first, a passion, a sensation, an impression. It is a wanting, a feeling, and then reason, the clever servant, is enlisted to find the means to satisfy it. The water is in the kitchen, reason says. I must get up, walk to the kitchen, and pour a glass. Reason is the brilliant tool, the map maker. But it is not the destination. The passion, the desire, the aversion, the hope, the fear is the destination. It sets the goal. Reason alone can never motivate action. You can have the most perfectly reasoned argument in the world for why you should be charitable. But without the sentiment of sympathy, the feeling of compassion, you will not move. You can have a logical proof that exercise is good for you, but without the desire for health or the fear of decline, you will remain in your chair. We are not, at our core, rational calculators. We are feeling, sensing, wanting creatures. Our moral compass is not drawn from the stars of pure logic, but from the deeper, warmer, more ancient well of sentiment. We see suffering, and we feel a natural, immediate sentiment of disapproval. We see kindness, and we feel a sentiment of approval. This is the foundation of morality. It is a matter of taste, of feeling, of a shared human heart, not a divine commandment or a geometric proof. This is not a demotion. This is a homecoming. It is permission to trust the wisdom of your body, the intelligence of your heart, that gut feeling, that instinct, that sudden surge of compassion for a stranger. These are not irrational distractions from a purer path. They are the very ground of your being speaking through you. They are the passions, the great motivators of life. Reason is the superb navigator, but sentiment is the wind in the sails. You have been trying to listen for the voice of a distant, logical God, when all along the guidance was in the pulse at your wrist, the tightness in your chest, the warmth that spreads through you when you witness an act of courage or of love. So tonight, as you lie here in the dark, you need not strive to be more rational. You need only to be more present to what you feel, the weight of the day, the quiet hope for tomorrow, the simple comfort of this bed. These are your truths. The great structures of self and causality were beautiful, necessary fictions. They allowed you to navigate the daylight world. But now, in the dark, you can set them down. You are not a solid thing, but a process. The world is not a clockwork mechanism, but a tapestry of fleeting events. And your guide is not a flawless logic, but the deep, murmuring, ancient voice of your own sentient heart. It knows the way. It always has. You can let reason sleep now. It has worked hard enough. Let the soft, wordless passions of the body, the feeling of safety, the release of muscle, the rhythm of breath, take over. They will carry you the rest of the way into the waiting, silent, and deeply knowing world of dream. Fourth exploration. What if the greatest discovery is the emptiness you leave behind? Imagine a man, not old, but feeling the weight of a century in his bones, walking away from his own monument. The year is 1739. Or perhaps it is always 1739 in the mind of a young man who has just set the world on fire and found the flames cold. David Hume, at 28 years old, has published his treatise of human nature. He believed it would revolutionize everything, that it would become the new architecture for the human soul. He expected the world to argue, to rage, to see the brilliance. Instead, it fell, as he put it, dead-born from the press. More than silence. It was a void. And this is where our story begins. Not with a bang of triumph, but in the profound, echoing quiet that follows a shattering. What if the greatest discovery isn't a thing you build, but a space you clear? What if the most important work of a lifetime is to meticulously, carefully dismantle the rickety scaffolding of certainty until you are left standing in an open field under a vast and starry sky with nothing but the wind for company? This is the story of that emptiness and the strange, quiet freedom that can only be found there. Picture him in a small, book-lined room in Edinburgh. The air smells of old paper and the faint metallic tang of the ink he has spilled. Ink that now feels like blood lost for no cause. The manuscript of the treatise sits on his desk. A stack of paper that contains the very atoms of his intellect, his youth, his burning certainty. And it is as if it is not even there. It has failed to enter the world. He runs a hand over the cover, feeling not the pride of an author, but the cool, smooth surface of a tombstone. This is the first emptiness. The emptiness of a voice speaking into a gale, hearing no echo of its own sound. We all know this feeling in our own smaller ways. The proposal that was ignored, the heartfelt word that was met with a shrug, the love offered that found no home. It is a specific, personal kind of loneliness, one that makes you question the very substance of your own being. If a tree falls in a forest and no one hears it, did it make a sound? If a man unleashes his genius and the world turns over in its sleep, did he ever truly exist? And so Hume begins his work. But his work is not construction. It is demolition. He takes a torch to the most cherished structures of the human mind. He walks up to the proud marble edifice of the self, the I, the soul, the captain of the ship, and he asks a simple, devastating question. Where is it? If you close your eyes and look within, what do you actually find? Do you find a single, solid, continuous thing? Or do you find a procession, a heat of impressions, a cold glass of water on a summer day, the memory of your mother's voice, a flicker of anxiety about a letter yet to arrive, a tune stuck in your head, a dull ache in your knee? Where, in that ever-changing, chaotic parade, is the permanent you? Hume sits in his chair, the leather creaking with his shifting weight, and he looks. He looks with an honesty so brutal it becomes a form of reverence. And he sees no captain. He sees only the ship, and the sea, and the weather. He sees no central commanding self, only a bundle of perceptions tied together with the fragile string of memory and habit. He doesn't destroy the self. He just looks for it and reports back an absence. He moves on to the great, invisible chain of cause and effect. This is the glue of the universe, is it not? We see a billiard ball strike another, and we know the second will move. We see the sun rise each morning, and we know it will rise again tomorrow. But Hume, in the quiet of his study, asks another childlike and terrifying question. How? How do you know? You see one event, and then you see another. You see flame, and then you feel heat. But do you ever see the causation itself? Do you ever perceive the necessary connection, the invisible thread that binds them? Or have you simply seen the two things together so many times that your mind, a creature of habit, has developed a custom, an expectation? You see the first, and you expect the second. But expectation is not knowledge. It is a feeling, a pull in the gut, a story the mind tells itself to make the world feel less terrifyingly random. He takes the solid ground of causality from under our feet and reveals it to be a thin sheet of ice over a dark, deep ocean of constant conjunction. We are not living in a universe of laws, but of routines. And a routine can, at any moment, without warning, change. Now, sit with that emptiness for a moment. In the space of a few years, this young man has cleared out the furniture of the mind, the central commanding self, gone, replaced by a bustling, leaderless city of sensations. The reliable causal structure of the universe, gone, replaced by a sequence of events with no guaranteed connection. He is sitting in the middle of a room he has meticulously emptied. The walls are bare. The floor echoes. This is the philosophical equivalent of a Zen garden, raked clean of every leaf and twig of dogma. And the question is, what now? This is the moment most of us fear. We cling to our furniture, our knickknacks of belief, because the empty room seems like a horror, a nihilistic void. But watch Hume. He doesn't despair. He doesn't curl up in a ball in the corner of his empty room. He stretches. He walks to the window and throws it open. He feels the cool Scottish air on his face. He has not been left with nothing. He has been left with the world, directly. Stripped of the arrogant fiction of a permanent self, he is free to simply be the flow of his experiences. Stripped of the arrogant certainty of causal laws, he is free to engage with the world as it is, a place of wonder, habit, and profound mystery. He doesn't stop playing billiards. He just understands that the movement of the balls is a kind of beautiful, predictable magic, not a dictate from the gears of the cosmos. The emptiness is not an end. It is the beginning of a more honest, more direct, and, in a strange way, a more peaceful engagement with the breathtaking, inexplicable fact of being alive. He didn't lose everything. He let go of the map and found himself finally standing in the territory. The mind, once emptied of its oldest certainties, does not remain a vacuum. Nature, as Hume would say, abhors a vacuum, and into that cleared space, something else begins to drift. Not a new dogma, not a new system of thought, but something quieter, more persistent, more human. It is the simple, undeniable impulse to reach for a friend, to share a meal, to feel the pull of a shared smile in a world of fleeting impressions, which leads us, inevitably, to a different kind of question. Fifth, exploration. Can a man who trusts nothing build a life worth living? So here we find him, David Hume, the great destroyer, the skeptic who has taken a wrecking ball to the foundations of knowledge, of self, of science. He sits in the ruins, and the dust begins to settle. And a practical, profoundly human question must now arise. What does he do now? How does he, of all people, get out of bed in the morning? If reason cannot prove the sun will rise, if it cannot even prove he is the same man who lay down in the bed the night before, what is left to propel him into the day? This is the quiet drama of Hume's life, a drama that unfolds not in grand lecture halls, but in the simple daily choices of a man navigating a world he has intellectually vaporized. Can a man who trusts nothing build a life? And not just any life, but a life renowned for its generosity, its warmth, its wit, its profound and genuine goodness? The answer, it turns out, is not found in a book. It is found in the clatter of a coffee house, the warmth of a fireplace among friends, the simple, unshakable pull of a human heart. Follow him out of his study. See him leave the world of abstractions behind, stepping out onto the cobblestone streets of Edinburgh. The air is different out here. It is filled with the smell of baking bread, the calls of merchants, the mist of a coming rain. This is the world of custom, of habit, of sentiment. And Hume, the arch-skeptic, surrenders to it completely. He does not believe the bread will nourish him. He has a custom, based on past experience, that it will. And so he eats. He does not believe his friend will greet him with a smile. He feels a natural sympathy, an affection. And so he seeks him out. He discovered that, while reason was a powerful tool for dissection, it was a terrible guide for life. Life is not lived in the silent, sterile laboratory of the mind. It is lived in the messy, vibrant, feeling world of the heart. He made a famous distinction. Reason, he said, is the slave of the passions. It can tell you how to get what you want, but it can never tell you what to want. Your desires, your sympathies, your moral sentiments. These are not conclusions reached by logic. They are feelings, planted deep within our nature. as much a part of us as the need for food or sleep. They called him Saint David in Edinburgh, and not with irony. This man, whose philosophy could seem so chilling on the page, was in person a beacon of warmth. He was famously portly, a man who enjoyed a good bottle of claret and a well-laid table. His home was a place of conversation and camaraderie. He was a fiercely loyal friend. When his friend, the erratic and brilliant Jean-Jacques Rousseau, was being hounded from country to country, Hume spent immense time, energy, and his own political capital to secure him a safe haven in England, only to be rewarded with Rousseau's paranoid accusations. The betrayal was public and vicious. And what did Hume do? He did not retreat into a fortress of cynical, "I told you so." He was wounded deeply. He wrote a concise, factual account of the affair to clear his name, but he refused to engage in a public war of words. He understood the passions, even the destructive ones. He felt the sting of injustice, but he did not let it curdle his fundamental goodwill. His philosophy did not make him hard. It made him resilient, compassionate, and profoundly understanding of human frailty. He built his life then, not on the shifting sand of rational certainty, but on the solid rock of human nature. He looked within and found not a logical proof for morality, but a natural sentiment of benevolence. We are, by our very constitution, social creatures. We wince when we see another in pain. We feel a lift in our spirits when we see joy. This is not something we reason our way into. It is something we are. And so, his life became a testament to that sentiment. He trusted his gut, his heart, his innate sense of sympathy. He built a life of connection, of service, of friendship. He became a renowned historian, not by trying to find iron laws of history, but by telling the stories of people with all their passions and follies. He engaged with the world as a participant, not just an observer. The man who doubted everything became the man who could be trusted with anything. His skepticism was not a prison. It was the thing that liberated him from ideologies, from absolutes, allowing him to be fully, generously, and wisely present in the unpredictable, beautiful, and fleeting human drama. He showed that a life worth living isn't built on unshakable truths, but on a gentle, unwavering commitment to the shared humanity that persists long after all the arguments have been made and found wanting. And so the skeptic finds his peace, not in winning arguments, but in laying them down. He finds his truth not in the stark light of reason, but in the gentle, forgiving glow of shared feeling. But this journey, this quiet surrender to the limits of the mind, leaves one last, lingering resonance in the air, a final whisper that has less to do with thought and more to do with the soul's posture before the immense, silent mystery of existence. Sixth exploration: what lingers in the room? After all the arguments are gone, there comes a point in a long evening of conversation when the debate has run its course. The final points have been made, the last retorts offered. A silence falls. It is not an empty silence, not an awkward one. It is a full silence, pregnant with all that has been said, and all that could never be said. The fire is burned down to embers, and their soft, pulsing light is the only thing moving in the room. This is the space David Hume ultimately inhabits, after the brilliant, devastating arguments of the treatise, after the more polished, elegant prose of the inquiries, after a lifetime of using his intellect like a scalpel, he arrives at a final, quiet place. What remains when the engine of reason is finally, gratefully, turned off? What lingers in the room, in the mind, in the heart, after all the arguments are gone? It is not a conclusion. It is not a dogma. It is a quality of attention, a gentle, open-ended, and deeply peaceful wonder. We see this most clearly in his later writings and in the accounts of his final days. The fierce young skeptic mellows into a man who has made his peace with the unknown. He never found a rational foundation for religion, and he remained, to the end, a gentle but firm non-believer in the face of desperate clergymen hoping for a deathbed conversion. But his atheism was not a militant, angry certainty. It was, instead, a humble admission of ignorance. He had followed reason as far as it could go, and it had led him to the edge of a great abyss. And at that edge he did not pretend to see across. He simply stopped and acknowledged the view. He called himself an agnostic before the word was even coined. The order of the universe, he suggested, probably did have some remote first cause, some principle of organization, but to project our human qualities of mind, our petty concerns for praise and punishment, onto that remote, unimaginable cause, that, he believed, was the height of arrogance. The true philosopher, having dismantled his own pride, stands before the cosmos not with answers, but with a quiet and profound reverence for the mystery. And this is what lingers: a feeling, a sensibility. It is the soft light that remains after the blinding glare of dogma has been extinguished. It is the gentle acceptance of our own limits. Hume, on his deathbed, was described by his friend Adam Smith as meeting his end with a cheerful, unshakable equanimity. He was not afraid. There was no terror of hell, because he found the concept philosophically absurd. There was no desperate clutching at heaven, because he had no reason to believe in it. But neither was there a bleak, nihilistic despair. There was instead a deep and abiding gratitude for the life he had lived, the friends he had loved, the world he had enjoyed so thoroughly. He faced the great, final unknown with the same calm curiosity with which he had faced every other question. He was simply ready for the next thing, whatever, if anything, it might be. The arguments were over. The work was done. All that was left was the man and the moment and a quiet peace. So let this be the final gift his dark philosophy offers us for sleep. Not a set of answers to cling to, but a permission to let go. The permission to set down the exhausting burden of having to know, to be certain, to have it all figured out. The mind, when it stops its frantic grasping for solid ground, discovers that it can float. The soul, when it stops demanding ultimate explanations, can finally rest in the sheer, astonishing fact of the present moment. The weight of the self, that heavy fiction, dissolves, and you are left as you truly are, a point of awareness, a gentle witness to the passing show of sensations, the coolness of the sheets, the rhythm of your breath, the silent, star-dusted darkness behind your eyelids. Hume's philosophy, in the end, is a lullaby for the over-intellectual, the over-certain, the weary captain trying to steer the ship through an unknowable sea. It whispers that the ship doesn't need a captain. The sea doesn't need a chart. You can let go. You can just be. And in that letting go, in the quiet room after all the arguments have gone to sleep, you may just find the deepest, most restful peace you have ever known. A peace that passes all understanding, because it has finally stopped trying to understand. Now, just breathe and rest. Seventh exploration. What if the world is built on a habit of faith? Imagine for a moment the simple, solid certainty of a sunrise. You do not imagine it, of course. You know it. You have lived a lifetime of sunrises. Or at the very least, you've inherited the unshakable confidence of 1,000 generations who have watched the darkness relent to the light. It is a fact as firm as the ground beneath your feet. But what if I were to tell you that this certainty, this bedrock of your daily reality, is the most fragile of things? Not a fact at all, but a desperate, beautiful, and entirely necessary act of faith. This was the quiet, devastating insight of a man named David Hume, a man who took the world apart to see what made it tick, and found not clockwork, but a whisper. He sat in the lamplight of his Edinburgh study, a man of reason among men of reason, and he committed the ultimate act of intellectual rebellion. He turned reason upon itself and asked a question so simple it could dismantle the universe. Why do we believe that the sun will rise tomorrow? You see, we've all been taught that we learn from experience. We touch a flame, it burns, and so we learn that fire is hot. We see the sun traverse the sky day after day, and we learn that it will do so again. But Hume, with the patience of a watchmaker, peered into this process and found a ghost in the machine. He saw that all we ever truly experience is a sequence of events. This flame, then this pain, this sunset, then this sunrise. We never experience the necessary connection between them. We never see the cause itself. We only see one thing and then another. And from this thin repetition, our mind, this desperate storyteller, weaves a thread of expectation. It calls this thread causality. It calls it a law. But Hume called it by its true humble name, custom or habit, a habit of faith. Think of the weight of that. The entire project of human knowledge, from the farmer planting his seeds for a harvest he may not live to see, to the scientist predicting the path of a comet 1,000 years from now, all of it rests not on an ironclad logic, but on a psychological tick, a gentle, persistent addiction to the way things have been. We are all believers, you and I. We are faithful in the consistency of the world. And this is not a failure of reason. It is the very thing that allows us to live. Without this faith, this animal trust and habit, we would be paralyzed. We could not eat, for we could not be sure the food would not turn to ash in our mouths. We could not step outside, for we could not be sure the ground would not open up beneath us. Hume did not shatter the world to leave us in ruins. He shattered the arrogant certainty of reason to show us the soft, dark soil of faith upon which our garden of knowledge actually grows. It is a faith not in gods or dogma, but in the quiet, persistent hum of reality itself. So when you lie here in the dark, waiting for your own sunrise, and you feel the gentle pull of sleep, which is itself an act of faith in the morning to come, remember this: you are not a creature of pure logic navigating a mechanical world. You are a living, breathing story tethered to reality by the slender, beautiful, and unbreakable thread of habit. And in that realization, there is a profound peace, a letting go. The arguments of the day, the need to be right, the frustration when the world does not conform to your models of it, all of it can soften now. Because it was never about certainty. It was always about a deep, abiding, and utterly human trust. A trust that the world, in its own mysterious way, will keep its appointment with the dawn, and that you, in your quiet faith, are a part of that beautiful, habitual ritual. Eighth exploration. Can we truly mourn a self we never had And so we find ourselves unmoored from the certainty of the world outside. But what of the world within? What of the most intimate certainty we possess? The feeling of being a self, a continuous, unbroken I that stretches from your earliest memory to this very moment, listening to the sound of this voice in the dark. This is the citadel of the soul, the seat of consciousness. It feels like the one thing that cannot be an illusion. And yet, David Hume, that gentle skeptic, took his inquiry inward. He closed his eyes, and he asked himself to find this thing he called his self. He searched the contents of his mind, the parade of sensations, the memories like faded paintings, the hopes like distant music, the aches and the comforts. And he reported back, with the stark honesty of a cartographer mapping a phantom island, that he could never catch himself at any time without a perception. He found only the perceptions themselves, the cold of the window pane, the scent of ink, the sound of the fire, the memory of a face. But the I that was supposed to be having these experiences, it was like trying to see the air. It was everywhere, and yet, when he looked for it directly, it was nowhere to be found. The self, he concluded, is not a solid thing, a little homunculus sitting behind our eyes. It is a bundle, a collection of different perceptions, a theater where perceptions make their appearance, pass, repass, and glide away. There is no stage. There are only the actors, the sets, the plays. This is a thought that can feel like a kind of death. To mourn the self we thought we had, the captain of the ship, the author of the story. We cling to this idea because the alternative seems like chaos. If there is no permanent self, then who is responsible? Who learns? Who loves? Who is lying here in the dark, listening? But follow the thought not with fear, but with the curiosity of a dream. If the self is a bundle, then it is also a process, a constant, flowing, weaving. The you that fell in love for the first time is not the you that remembers it now. The you that was hurt as a child is not the you that carries the scar. They are connected, yes, by a thread of memory, a habit of narrative. You tell yourself the story of your life, and in the telling, you create the protagonist. But the protagonist is a fiction, a necessary one, that holds the chapters together. So, can we mourn a self we never had? Perhaps we can. There is a gentle sorrow in it, the way one might feel looking at a childhood drawing and realizing the monster in the closet was never really there. But in that sorrow, there is an immense and profound freedom. The burdens you carry, the fixed identity you believe you must uphold, the regrets that cling to a you that no longer exists. They begin to loosen their grip. They were never attached to a solid thing. They are just old costumes in the endless play of the mind. You are not a statue carved and finished. You are a river. And a river does not mourn the water that has already flowed past. It simply flows. In the quiet of this night, feel the flow. The sensation of the sheets against your skin, the sound of this voice, the memory that just surfaced and faded. You are not the things you contain. You are the gentle, boundless space in which they all, for a moment, arise and dance and fall away. And in that, there is no one to be and nothing to hold. Only the peaceful, empty, and beautiful dark. Ninth exploration. Where does a moral man stand when the ground is gone? So here we are. The world outside is a matter of habit. The world inside is a flowing bundle. The foundations we took for granted have dissolved into mist, and into this quiet, groundless space, we must now ask the most human of questions. How, then, shall we live? If there is no divine law written in the stars, and no solid self to command us, what is to stop us from simply taking what we want? This is the final and most terrifying frontier of Hume's thought. He has taken away our external and internal certainties. Now he approaches morality, and he finds its source not in the heavens, and not in the cold calculus of reason, but in the soft, vulnerable flesh of the human heart. He tells us that reason is, and ought only to be, the slave of the passions. It is a phrase that has been misunderstood. He does not mean we are slaves to wild, unchecked impulses. He means that reason alone can never motivate action. Reason can tell you the most efficient way to build a bridge, but it can never tell you why you should build a bridge to help others. That should comes from somewhere else. It comes from a feeling, a sentiment, a capacity for sympathy, which he believed was an innate part of our human nature. We see suffering, and we feel a pang of distress. We see joy, and we feel a lift of the heart. This is not a logical deduction. It is an immediate, visceral response. Morality, for Hume, is a social art built upon this bedrock of shared feeling. It is a conversation, not a commandment. It is the slow, patient work of humanity learning what causes pleasure and pain in its members, and cultivating a shared disapproval for actions that cause suffering and a shared approval for those that promote happiness. So, where does a moral man stand when the ground is gone? He does not stand on stone. He stands on the common ground of a shared heartbeat. He understands that his virtue is not a list of rules to be followed, but a sensitivity to be cultivated. It is the ability to feel, in some small measure, the joy and the anguish of another. This is a morality that is humbler, but also far more resilient. It does not shatter when dogma fails. It evolves as we evolve. It grows as our circle of sympathy grows. In the darkness of your room, consider the weight of a single kindness you offered today, or one you received. That was not reason. That was not a calculation. That was a momentary bridge built between two bundles of perception, a silent acknowledgement of a shared fate. It was a recognition that, even if the self is an illusion, the pain is real. The joy is real. The sympathy that connects us is the most real thing of all. David Hume, the great skeptic, the demolisher of certainty, ultimately leads us not into a cold, meaningless void, but back to the warm, messy, and beautiful world of human feeling. He gives us a morality that is born not of fear, but of care. So as you drift now towards the edges of sleep, let go of the need for solid ground. Let go of the search for an unshakable self. You are held, not by stone and doctrine, but by the invisible, countless threads of human sentiment, woven through time. You are part of a great, sympathetic tapestry, and in that there is a peace deeper than any certainty, a rest more profound than any answer, a rest that needs no reason, only the gentle, faithful rhythm of the breath, carrying you into the soft and waiting dark. 10th, exploration. What if the world is just a beautiful, persistent habit? Close your eyes now and let the weight of the day begin to dissolve, not with a fight, but with a slow, gracious release. Feel the pillow cool against your cheek. The gentle rise and fall of your chest becomes the only rhythm that matters in this darkening room. And in this space, I want you to imagine a different kind of dark. the deep, velvety dark of a Scottish night in the 18th century. In a room lit only by the guttering flame of a single candle, a man sits, surrounded by the ghosts of unspoken thoughts. The air is thick with the scent of old paper and sealing wax. This is David Hume, and he is about to commit a quiet act of revolution, not with a sword, but with a question. A question that would echo through the centuries, right into this very room, right into the quiet architecture of your own mind. What if everything you believe about the world is just a beautiful, persistent habit? Think for a moment of the sunrise. You know, with a certainty that feels as solid as bone, that the sun will rise tomorrow. You bet your life on it every day. You plan your meetings, your journeys, your hopes for tomorrow, on the unwavering faith that light will follow darkness. But how do you know? Is it a logical truth, like the solution to a mathematical equation? Or is it simply because you have seen it happen day after day after day for your entire life? Hume would lean back in his chair, the wood creaking softly in the silence, and he would suggest a terrifying, yet somehow liberating idea. You do not know the sun will rise. You have only become accustomed to it doing so. You have formed a habit of belief. This is the cornerstone of his skepticism, the demolition of what he called customary conjunction. Cause and effect, the very engine of the universe, is not a law we can perceive. It is a story we tell ourselves, a narrative woven from repetition, a comfortable fiction that allows us to navigate the world without going mad. Feel that idea for a moment. Don't fight it. Don't argue with it. Just let it settle in the dim light. The coffee mug falls from your hand and shatters on the floor. You say the fall caused it to break. But all you truly witnessed was two events, the release and the shattering. The connection between them, the necessity you feel in your gut, is a ghost, a habit of your mind, stitching those two moments together with invisible thread. This is the world Hume describes, a world not of ironclad laws, but of gentle, constant associations. The flame has always been followed by heat. The seed has always been followed by the tree. We see the constant companionship of events, and our minds, desperate for order, for a story, paint a line of causality between them. We are all storytellers, you see, not scientists. We are crafting a coherent narrative from a sequence of sensations, and we have been doing it for so long, we have forgotten the seam between the world as it is and the world as we tell it. And what of you? The you that sits here in the dark, listening, the captain of your ship, the thinker of your thoughts. Hume turns his gentle, devastating gaze inward to the concept of the self. Search for it, he whispers. Close your eyes and look within. What do you find? A sensation of cool linen, a distant memory of a conversation, a faint worry about tomorrow, a lingering taste of toothpaste, a stream of perceptions, one after the other. But do you ever find a single, solid, unchanging self that owns these perceptions? Or is the self, too, just another story? A narrative you construct to bind these fleeting moments into a single, continuous life. You are not a static portrait, but a river of impressions and ideas, constantly flowing, changing, evolving. The you of 10 years ago is a ghost, a character in a story the present you is telling. There is no central throne room in the mind, only a parliament of fleeting sensations, electing a prime minister for a moment before the vote shifts again. This isn't a loss, it is a release. The burden of being a fixed, permanent entity. It dissolves. You are not a stone. You are the river, and a river is allowed to change its course. So here we are, you and I, in the quiet aftermath of this thought. The world outside your window is not a machine of predictable causes, and you are not its permanent overseer. It is a tapestry of habits, a dance of constant fleeting impressions. This could feel terrifying, like the floor has vanished, but breathe and feel it differently. Feel the immense freedom in it. The universe is not a locked room you are trying to solve. It is a living, breathing, habitual dream. And your life is not a problem to be figured out, but a rich, complex, and utterly unique story to be lived. The pressure for certainty, it melts away. You can release the need to know how it all works. You can simply experience the profound, beautiful mystery of it. The habit of the sunrise, the habit of your own continuity. These are not lies. They are the gentle, reliable rhythms that allow the poetry of existence to be written. So tonight, as you drift, feel the habits that hold you. The habit of your breath, the habit of your heartbeat, the habitual, faithful return of the darkness that cradles you to sleep. You are not falling asleep in a world of rigid laws. You are falling asleep inside a beautiful, persistent dream. And it is enough. It is more than enough to simply rest within it. There is a silence that comes after a great truth is spoken not as a shout, but as a whisper. It is the silence of a room after the candle has been snuffed out, where the image of the flame still dances behind your closed eyelids. And in that silence, a new question begins to form. Not from the world of physics, but from the world of the human heart. 11th exploration. Where does a good man go when God is a whisper? So if the world is built on habit and the self is a story, what then becomes of the soul? Where does a good man plant his feet when the ground of divine law, of eternal certainty, has turned to mist? This was Hume's most dangerous question, the one that would get his books threatened with burning, that would see him called a heretic, an atheist, a corrupter of minds. He did not rage against the heavens. He simply turned down the volume. He reduced God from a thunderous declaration to a faint, speculative whisper, and in doing so, he left us with a terrifying and beautiful responsibility. Where does a good man go when God is a whisper? Imagine Hume again, not in his study, but walking through the bustling, muddy streets of Edinburgh. He sees a man help a stranger lift a heavy cart from a ditch. He sees a mother share her meager bread with a crying child. He sees a merchant, tempted by a purse of gold left unattended, pause, and then call out to its owner. Where does this come from? For centuries, the answer was clear: God. A divine lawgiver had etched morality into the fabric of the universe, into the human heart. To be good was to be obedient. But Hume, the gentle skeptic, asked, do we need the architect to feel the warmth of the fireplace? He proposed something radical, something that felt, to his contemporaries, like moral anarchy. He called it sentiment. Morality is not a truth we discover through reason. It is a feeling we perceive through a kind of moral sense, a taste of the heart. Think of a time you witnessed a genuine act of cruelty, the bully taunting the vulnerable, the powerful exploiting the weak. You did not need to reason your way to the conclusion that it was wrong. You felt it, a visceral recoil, a heat in the face, a clenching in the gut. That, Hume would say, is your moral sentiment. It is not a logical deduction. It is an emotional response, as immediate as the taste of a rotten piece of fruit. Conversely, think of an act of unexpected kindness. the stranger who pays for your coffee, the friend who listens, truly listens, without waiting for their turn to speak. You feel a warmth, an expansion in your chest, a sense that all is right. This, too, is a sentiment. We are wired, he suggested, with a natural capacity for sympathy. We are not isolated islands of consciousness. We are mirrors to one another's joys and pains. We see a smile, and we feel a flicker of light. We see a tear, and we feel a shadow of sorrow. This shared resonance is the true foundation of our moral world. It is social, it is human, it is built from the ground up, not decreed from the heavens down. And this changes everything, doesn't it? It means that goodness is not a test you are passing for some final judgment. It is a conversation you are having with your own heart and the hearts of others. The good life is not about following a script written in stone. It is about cultivating that inner sentiment, polishing that mirror of sympathy so it can reflect more clearly. It is about tending the garden of your own character, not out of fear of hell or desire for heaven, but because a well-tended character is its own reward. A virtuous man is not a soldier following orders. He is an artist crafting a beautiful life. His actions are his brushstrokes. His relationships are his canvas. This is a heavier responsibility in a way. There is no rule book to absolve you of choice. But it is also a far more dignified one. Your morality is yours. It is human. It is fallible. It is nurtured by experience and refined by conversation. It is alive. So as you lie here, the day's negotiations and compromises slowly fading, ask yourself not if you have been good according to some external standard. Ask yourself a simpler, deeper question. The question Hume's philosophy invites. Did I listen to the sentiment today? Did I feel the pull of sympathy? Did I polish the mirror, or did I let it cloud? There is no wrathful God to punish you for the answer. There is only the quiet, unwavering testimony of your own heart. And in that there is a profound peace. You are not a subject in a cosmic kingdom. You are a participant in a fragile, beautiful human project. Your compass is not a distant star, but the steady, reliable beat of empathy within your own chest. You can let that beat now slow and sync with the rhythm of the night. You are exactly where a good man goes. Home to the quiet, undeniable truth of his own humanity. And from this intimate, internal world, from the quiet pulse of sentiment that guides us in the light, we must now venture into the final, most serene surrender. The surrender not of action or of belief, but of the mind itself. The letting go. 12th, exploration. Can surrendering the search for answers be the ultimate wisdom? We spend our lives in a desperate, beautiful, exhausting search. We search for answers, for meaning, for the one true unifying theory that will make sense of the chaos. We build cathedrals of thought. We construct intricate philosophies. We chase certainty like a mirage in a desert, always receding, always beckoning. What if the wisest man is not the one who finds the answer, but the one who has the courage to lay down the search? What if true peace is not a destination you reach, but a quest you gracefully, gratefully abandon? Can surrendering the search for answers be the ultimate wisdom? This is where David Hume, the great demolisher, becomes David Hume, the great physician of the soul. After dragging reason to its furthest limits, after showing how it fails to prove the existence of the external world, the self or God, he arrives at a cliff's edge. And he does not jump. He turns around and he comes back to the warmth of the common room. He sits by the fire with his friends. He plays a game of backgammon. He enjoys a good meal and lively conversation. This was not a failure of his philosophy. It was its glorious, human culmination. He called it academic skepticism, a profound doubt in the study, followed by a cheerful participation in life. He realized that nature itself would not allow us to live in a state of perpetual paralyzing doubt. A kind of healthy instinct, a natural belief, takes over. We must eat. We must socialize. We must act as if the world is real, as if the self is continuous, as if our actions matter. And in that as if, we find not a lie, but a way of living. Imagine a man lost in a vast ancient forest. For days he climbs the tallest trees, trying to map a path to see the way out. He exhausts himself. His hands are raw. His spirit is broken by the endless, identical canopy. Finally, in a state of pure surrender, he stops. He sits by a stream. He drinks the cold water. He notices the delicate pattern of a fern. He hears the specific song of a bird he had been too frantic to hear before. He is still lost, but he is no longer desperate. He has found a different kind of knowing, not the knowledge of the map, but the knowledge of the forest itself. He has made peace with being lost. Hume invites us to make peace with being lost in the universe, to stop climbing the desperate tree of certainty, and to instead sit by the stream of our immediate experience, to taste the water, to feel the moss, to be here, fully, in the mysterious, unprovable, breathtakingly real present moment. This is the final gift of his dark philosophy. It is not a destination of despair, but a gateway to a deeper, calmer engagement with life. The search for ultimate meaning is a burden you were never meant to carry. It is the weight of the world, and you can set it down. Tonight, feel the weight leaving your shoulders. The questions that have haunted your waking hours, the purpose of your work, the trajectory of your life, the nature of it all. You are permitted to let them go. Not because they are unimportant, but because the answers were never yours to hold. They are like trying to hold the horizon in your hands. Release the grip. Feel the immense, quiet relief. Wisdom, then, is not a lighted room. It is the graceful, grateful acceptance of the candle's gentle flicker and the vast, friendly darkness that surrounds it. It is trusting the habit of the sunrise without needing to know its cause. It is following the sentiment of your heart without needing a divine commandment. It is living your story without needing to be its final, authoritative critic. So now, let the story of this day end. Let the arguments in your mind fall silent. There is no test to pass. There is no secret to uncover. There is only this breath, and the next, and the soft, dark, habitual embrace of the night, which asks nothing of you but to surrender to it, to rest, to simply be a beautiful, persistent, and wonderfully mysterious habit in a cosmos of the same. Sleep now. All is well.